Hey everybody, it's me, Shallow360, and the name of this live is Critique. Because, or is it Criticism? I don't remember. I literally did it seconds ago, and I don't remember because I'm old and my memory is bad. But anyway, you saw the title of this. I wanted to talk about criticism and critique and kind of the way that I feel, this is my personal feelings, that I feel that nuance is not in the conversation anymore for most things. So I alluded to it on my last live stream, but I think we have to talk about the whole situation with all of the K-pop boys being in trouble about Made in Abyss. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's something that I've seen in terms of seeing the anime or knowing anything about the anime because, to be honest, I am not a big anime person. Back when me and Mason did our boys love chats, he would talk about the animes and the mangas he was reading, the manhwas, but I'm very ill equipped to talk about anime because I catch an anime here and there. Like I've watched oh, what's the name of the one? Oran High. If that's the name of it. I no, Oran Host Club. I think that's the name of it. I watched that. I watched the first couple of seasons of Black Butler. Me and my daughter just got through half of Carol and Tuesday, and I watched several Studio Ghibli movies, but I'm not an anime person, so that's why I'm saying I'm not the person to talk to you about the merits and or social distractions for anime. I will just say this in terms of some of the more uncomfortable things about anime. We have to understand that the art of every culture tends to be either a reflection or a reaction of said culture. And because of that, if there are troubling things that you see in anime that don't agree with you, but you're not a part of that culture, either it's because you're not a part of that culture, so you don't get it, or it's because the person who's creating the art might be reacting to their culture. And again, you're not aware of the problem, so you don't get it. I'm not saying that they're automatically right, but I'm saying there could be a chance that you're wrong. But let's keep going from there. So the furor over this anime in terms of K-pop spaces started when someone did like a high touch call with, I believe it was a member of ATEEZ, and they asked them about Made in the Abyss. Like, it wasn't even that Made in the Abyss was something that the idol brought up, it's something that the person on the call brought up. And the person that brought it up was told by the idol, yeah, I didn't enjoy season one. I thought season two was better, but it's still a really dark anime, and, it's not something I would recommend. That was their response. Somehow or another, the clip got spliced up, edited, put on social media, and made to seem that this was an endorsement by this idol. And then combing through the social media of several other idols, because there's so much content on the internet for idols nowadays. There didn't used to be. It turns out that there are several other members of other groups who have said they really enjoyed Made in Abyss. And that includes one of the members of NCT, it includes members of some, I think a member of TXT, some other people out there. And the reaction has been, oh my gosh, the subject matter on this show is about pedophilia and child abuse and sexual abuse. And how could you like something that portrays all these things? And oh my gosh, you're just as bad. You must be a pedophile too. And like it went from somebody saying, yeah, I thought one season was better than the other, but I can't recommend it fully, to anyone who has even consumed any part of this is a pedophile, a groomer, and a child abuser. Like it went from A to B super fast. And it's it turns out that the initial person who posted the first clip, who asked the question, they were called out on social media for chopping and screwing the clip, for editing things in a really unfavorable manner, and overall just like making clickbait and letting someone else deal with the repercussions of you wanting attention. And, they gave their little, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it was going to be taken that way. And, I'm just a little person on the internet. Oh, oh. And, of course, they're not going to see the repercussions they deserve. They're not gonna. But it was interesting because somebody else on Twitter apparently posted how they had been posting their support for, is it Kaien. I don't know what it's called. Don't ask me. It's the one that everybody likes. The initials are like JJK. Anyway, super popular. Jujutsu Kaisen. Don't get mad at me. I don't watch this. I don't watch this. I've seen it. I've seen like people talk about it. I don't watch it. Uh anyway, they were posting about how they enjoyed the show. And I guess they got a DM from a mutual saying, this show has A, B, C, and D. And because you post about it so much, it has made me uncomfortable and it makes me not want to follow you. And the person who was the initial poster was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I wish you had told me a while back that this made you uncomfortable. I would have definitely tried to do things. But like, if you've been uncomfortable for a really long time, you could just mute me. You could unfollow me. You could do a lot of things. You don't have to write me and blow up on me about how much you hate this. Well, the response from that person was, I don't accept your apology. You have proven just how evil and sick you are. You must be a pedophile just like everybody else who's ever liked this stuff. And the entire anime community is filled with pedophiles and you all should be arrested and prosecuted. Like it went from A to ZZZ super quick. And I will say this. I'm older, and the things that I say sometimes I feel like I have to put that disclaimer on them because honestly, I grew up in a time when people were a lot more insensitive than they are now. And maybe because of the insensitive nature of the times I grew up with, I almost feel like we've moved the needle a little too far. Now, this doesn't mean I'm any less liberal than I've already said I was, but it seems like people assume that if you express a life experience, an interest, any kind of enjoyment of something that somebody else doesn't enjoy, you're contributing to that other person's trauma by expressing your like of it. And it's something that honestly, I don't recall seeing years ago, but it seems like it happens more and more now. And I'll never laugh at somebody for saying I have a trigger. There are things that for me are triggers. For instance, if somebody suggests doing a vacation where I have to be in confined spaces, that's a trigger for me because I'm extremely claustrophobic. But if somebody wants to do something that to me would be terrifying, I wouldn't tell them, don't talk about that around me because I get claustrophobic. I would be like, don't suggest I do this with you because it ain't gonna happen. But triggers are real. And there have been times when, like, a door has been stuck, or there have been times when, I don't know, I felt closed in for some reason. And even though I wasn't, and the door was just stuck, and once I got it open, I was fine, it triggered something in me to cause my heart to race, to cause me to sweat, to cause me to feel like I need to get out of this situation because all of those fears of being trapped are right back there with me. Now, I think I've laid the groundwork for the discussion because nowadays you cannot do too much disclaimer work. You really got to do a lot. I decided to read about Made in Abyss because I wanted to understand the controversy because there were reports saying that the person who created this anime had been arrested for being a pedophile or charges of possessing child pornography. And I looked into it. It's not true. There's another anime creator who was arrested, but not the creator of this anime. So that was one thing I had to clear up for myself. The other thing is the storyline. Is the storyline about abusing and raping children? And the answer to that is those elements do exist in this anime. And there are some very graphic images of children being abused and placed in sexual situations. However, this story sounds like it is the anime equivalent to Paradise Lost or Dante's Inferno. So, this is what I read on Wikipedia about this story. The story is about a girl whose mother is some kind of explorer of the center of the earth. And it's really difficult to explore the center of the earth because the further and further you go down into the earth, the more it kind of mind breaks you. And that there's very few people who've been able to do it more than once, and there's very few people who have been able to get like really down far into the center of the earth. And so this girl's mother was one of the few people who could do it, but then she went on a journey to the center of the earth and didn't come back. So this girl somehow enlists the help of a half boy, half robot, and they start going towards the center of the earth for her to reconcile with her mother, but also because she'd always wanted to do the same thing her mother did. She wanted to be one of those rare people who could go back and forth from the middle of the earth to the surface. And as they go further and further into the center of the earth, the more depravity and terror and horror and things that they experience, because that's part of the reason why it's a mind break going further and further down. And in some of these levels, they come across a person who is a depraved being who routinely tortures children and kills children and does a lot of very unsavory things to them. But that person in this story is portrayed as a villain. That's a fact. So, that being said, I have taken a lot of fan fiction. Not, I don't write anymore. I used to, like almost 10 years ago, but nowadays I don't write anything. But I read a lot of fan fiction still. And I have read a lot of fan fiction that had very disturbing motifs, and I have seen writers of these things write in their author notes, I have been the victim of, or I have experienced said trauma, and I have chosen to write these things to help me process my trauma. Like I was saying before, art is usually a reflection or a reaction to culture, a reflection reaction to people's experiences. And there are a lot of people who engage in dark media in order to be able to process the darker things that have happened to them. There are people who enjoy true crime because they've been victims of crime. There are people who experience music that's really dark and heavy, screamo music, because it allows them to get something out that they can't express in their daily life. How many times have you listened to something and it spoke to something inside of you and allowed you to process something that maybe you didn't write, that it didn't come from you, and maybe it sounds the exact opposite of who you are as a person, but it allowed you a vehicle by which to express something or to let go of something or to really revisit something that had been hard to do up until that moment. A lot of people have that. A lot of people have that. And we've gotten to a point when discussing things that are unsavory that just the idea that something unsavory exists is too much. Not even how the context is framed, not even how the subject matter is treated, not even the actual motives of the person who's creating the art. Instead, it is because this thing exists in this art, this entire piece is invalid. It is disgusting. The people who partake in it, the people who view it, are disgusting. So I say all that because I feel like people don't realize, by taking your personal sensitivities out on these idols, by taking your personal triggers out on these idols who aren't telling you, you need to watch this thing. And so they're saying, I watched this thing and this is what I got from it. Instead of doing that, you're just like, because you consume this and I have cared about you in some way, shape, or form, I no longer want to have anything to do with you. And I don't think that that's necessarily fair. Now, I'm not going to be naive. There are people who enjoy certain media, and that's exactly who the fuck they are. That's true. Like I said, I'm an older woman, so I know if somebody says they enjoy seeing lolicon, chances are something's fucked up with you. And not everyone who enjoys lolicon is fucked up, but a good percentage of people who routinely look for and consume lolicon, maybe don't. But I think that something like Made in the Abyss, I could see why an idol would actually enjoy a show like this. Let's think about the context of what it means to be an idol. You're in a business where all the most unsavory things are done in the dark. All of the abuses that you happen to deal with in terms of, people wanting to put you under sponsorships and managers betraying you and stealing from you, record labels not allowing you to express art the way you want to, not being allowed to have the freedom to engage in personal relationships if it could at all be considered scandalous, not even really being able to walk out of your house without being made up for fear that you might take a bad picture, or being worried about what your interactions will be with every single person you meet for fear that they're going to rat you out to the press or the public for something that may not have meant what they thought you said. So there's a lot of idols dealing with a lot of darkness that they can't share with us. They can't share with us because the darkness might revolve around their record label. They maybe can't share it with us because they'll be implicated as being complicit with this behavior. They can't share it with us because they'd lose their future, and maybe they and their family depend on these funds. All of these things could be reasons why they can't share the darkness that they're exposed to. And so if you were a person who's dealing with a really dark industry where you're constantly being asked to compromise yourself for the greater good of the group or the greater good of the record label or whatever else, you may be somebody that finds yourself drawn to darker media because it reflects the way you feel. On the outside, I'm a happy little girl just doing my thing and enjoying life, but I'm actually waging a war underneath the surface and trying to get to my end goal. I could see somebody feeling the symbolism in that work. Now, there are some problems with the artist who conceptualized Made in the Abyss. Apparently, this is a very talented artist, but he has expressed his interest in lolicon, which again, don't do that. Don't do that. And he said some other things that people have been like, that's a major ick. Uh, but there's a lot of art that I like that has been created by people who are shady, and that doesn't mean that I condone their behavior. It doesn't. You can say what you want to, but that's not what it means. Now, if I said to everyone else, you need to consume this despite how you feel about this creator, that would be me being wrong. It would be very wrong of me to say, because I like Michael Jackson, that however you feel about the charges that were made against him during his lifetime and after his death, push all that aside. You need to be listening to Michael Jackson too. I would never say that. I understand that for a lot of people, Michael Jackson is a very sensitive subject. There are people who are on the fence about whether or not they think he did the things he was accused of in his lifetime and after. There are people who absolutely believe he is innocent, and there are people who absolutely believe he's guilty. And then there's people like me who Michael Jackson's music and his presence while he was on earth was so pivotal to who I became as a pop culture consumer that I just have not found the space in me to be able to let it go. Like, there are certain times when I hear songs and I'm like, that sounds like Michael Jackson, or that seems like a Michael Jackson-esque song. Those references are always there for me because, again, he was a really big part of my coming into pop culture. And so, yeah, I still listen to the Off the Wall album. I do. I still think that Butterfly is a great song. I still think that he had amazing videos. But I'm not going to tell you that you have to consume it because I honor the fact that the things that he's been accused of are so heinous that there are people who would never be able to separate the art from his person. I get that. And I'm also not going to spend time on the internet defending and telling people that if they think these things are true, they're assholes, they're faulty, and they ought to go to hell. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be a defender. I'm just going to tell you what my experience is and how I plan to operate moving forward. But that's the other flaw about being an idol. The part of being an idol that's so insidious and so terrifying, and so the reason why children should not be allowed to be idols, is because an idol has to represent the very best to everyone all the time. An idol can't be sad because someone they knew died a few months ago, because you're brought to the award show to be happy. Who am I referencing there? Yeti after Junghyun died. If you were part of K-pop during the time that Junghyun passed away, you'll remember that Yeti ran up to the hearse right before the hearse ran off, and people were like, oh wow, that's erratic behavior. Not even thinking about the fact that Yeti was, I think she was still either a teenager or in her early 20s when he passed. And she probably had never had anybody in her life pass away before. She probably was having a really hard time believing this is actually the last time I'll ever see their body again. And then for, I want to say maybe a month or two after he passed, because he passed during award season. Keep that in mind. He passed in December. Award season is usually late December, early January, February. So he passed like right before award season. Well, Yeti would be showing up on red carpets and she would look sad. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't putting on an idle face. And do you know what the netizen said? We don't pay you to look like that. We pay you to smile. So smile, bitch. Literally. And so when you're an idol, you're not allowed to have the same interests and preferences that every other asshole in the world can have. Instead, you're expected to never think anything controversial, do anything controversial, ever have your own emotions that couldn't possibly fit the situation. You have to reflect everybody else's best wishes for humanity. And because of that, idols have to find ways to be able to let that out. And they do it through the media they consume or when they think they're actually off the clock and not being monitored. But yeah, the minute they're at all exposed for like, this is something I do in my free time just to let off steam, whatever it is, innocent things. It's like, oh my gosh, fire them, take them out the group, fuck that person. When are we going to execute them? And it's just, it's something that's so unrealistic. But again, the term idol is an unrealistic thing. An idol is something to be worshipped. And who wants to worship something flawed? Most religions will tell you that their gods are perfect. Therefore, an idol, why would you worship a flawed idol? But these are human beings. So they have to be allowed to be human beings. But yeah, there were some really good comments. I want to read them, so give me a moment to go back. So Evie said, kind of behind of your stream, but like just because you like some form of media doesn't mean you endorse everything in it. Like Game of Thrones was huge, but obviously very problematic. Agreed. Game of Thrones, my mother actually read the books. I didn't have time. The books are that thick. But my mother read the books, and she was like, everything you see on the screen, not only is it in the books, but it's worse. There are way worse things happening off screen than what they're actually portraying. The sexism, the violence, the torture, the backstabbing, the incest, it's all way worse. But people watched Game of Thrones. People watched Game of Thrones. And when Game of Thrones was criticized for having too many naked women on screen, are portraying rape too freely and portraying rape in a favorable way with like the Khaleesi and Khal Drogo, HBO took that to the chin and said it's in the book. And the reason why we decided to adapt the book is because the book series was extremely popular. This is shit people wanted to read. But also, it was placed in a fantasy setting because it was supposed to be understood by everybody. This is fantasy. This is not happening in real life. We're not birthing dragons in real life. This is fantasy. But because it's fantasy, part of the reason why the rapes are portrayed, part of the reason why the sexual violence is portrayed, part of the reason why the torture is portrayed, is to let you know that the world that these characters inhabit is so ruthless and cutthroat that good people are forced to do bad things. Because there is no reprieve or safe place in this universe. So let's talk about the Khaleesi and Khal Drogo. Khal Drogo basically rapes the Khaleesi when they first get together. Her brother tells her when she marries the Khaleesi, I would let 100 people rape you if it got me my crown. Her own brother said that to her. Marries her off to Khal Drogo. Khal Drogo rapes her. She decides that she's just going to go ahead and be his wife. And after consulting with some of the local women, she becomes a person who was initially raped to somebody who enjoys having sex with her husband. But because of a witch, I'm guessing she was a witch in the tribe, and her need for vengeance against Khal Drogo, she ends up poisoning Khal Drogo, and that's how Khaleesi loses her first husband. And then she steps into a fire, and the fire burns all the clothes off of her, burns her hair, and all that's left is her and her baby dragons. Um, but the rape that I just described was not intended to be like, everyone loves rape, rape is so fun. Instead, it was mentioned because it was shown how little regard a woman in her position was given. Even though she was the daughter of a king, she was given absolutely no regard by people because she was a woman and all she was a tool. Because that's the kind of world they lived in. There were whorehouses, and the whorehouses were filled with abused women because it reflected that if you weren't a king or a queen or a noble, life was hard for you, and people had to use their bodies and their wits in order to be able to survive in these worlds. And it's something that, on a macro level, a lot of us can relate to. A lot of us would love to live the lap of luxury that a Kardashian or a royal family member might have, but we're forced to use our skills, our talents, our time to be able to support our lives. And so we can relate, even if it's just tangentially, to what these characters are going through. We can have empathy for that because a lot of us feel like we're being used and abused in our jobs. So, again, there's a way to find connections to art, even if the art itself brings up questionable things. There was another comment by Evie that said, if something triggers you, it's your own responsibility to deal with it, not the entire world. I agree and I disagree. I think that if something triggers you, you definitely are allowed to say, could you please warn me that was a trigger? I realize even now that I didn't give a trigger warning at the beginning of this discussion, and that's my fault. But you are not wrong to assume that people can warn you that something is there. And that would be the world's responsibility. And maybe somebody'd say, no one owes you a trigger warning. Okay, maybe but it would be considerate. Just like if I invite you to my home to eat a meal and you tell me I have an allergy, no, I'm not obligated to make you allergy free food. But if you tell me I have an allergy, then the least I could do is say, well, if you eat this, it's going to trigger it. So maybe stay away from this. This is the thing that I have made that you can actually consume. And I don't think that's an unfair ask. But yeah, I'm really tired of people taking things and inflating and conflating them in ways that harm, because there's no need to do that. There are so many other actual bad people in entertainment and in other spaces that you don't need to make up scenarios to portray people as bad people when there are real bad people to be found in the world. You don't have to look that hard. You just need to turn on the fucking news if you really want to see bad people. There are children being murdered every day. If you want to pick something to be disgusted about, and if you want to pick something to be enraged about, there are real lives at stake all the time. Go ahead and consume some of that if you really want to make yourself angry. But deciding that you want to create a controversy around some idols behind anime, that feels stupid to me. That feels like a waste of your time and your energy when you could be doing so much else. Also, I just want to say, fuck you to Spyglass. Has nothing to do with K-pop, but I am not a fan of the Scream movie series. I watched the first one, I thought it was cool. I watched the second one, I thought it was okay. I have not partaken in any other of the Scream franchise. It's just not for me. But Scream 6 did really, really well in theaters, and one of the actresses from Scream 6 voiced her support of Palestine and, condemned the actions of the IDF in Palestine. And the production company for Scream 7, because she was in Scream 6, fired her from her role in the movie by basically saying that she's anti Semitic and she's talking about a false genocide, which literally the government of Israel has said it is a genocide. Like, they have said they plan to wipe these people off the face of the earth. They've made those statements. But basically, they accused her of being anti Semitic, engaging in hate speech, promoting a false narrative about genocide, all these other things. They accused her of all of that. And because they did all of that, she's fired. And Jenny Ortega has chosen not to return to the Scream franchise, which I don't know if it's coincidental. I would like to believe it is. I hope it is. But again, this is an actress who was hired to pretend to be terrified of a killer. And she didn't say, oh, I think that this other country should be demolished. She said, the killing of children is really, really wrong. The killing of a whole people is really, really wrong. And I think that people should not stand by and watch this shit happen without raising their voices and saying it's wrong. And that was conflated to anti Semitism. That's really sad. That's really sad, y'all. It's really sad that's where we're at. But yeah, before I go, I'm just going to tell you about a couple of things that I got in the mail. I'm not opening them yet. I will open them soon, but I'm not opening them yet because I want to finish on K-pop. I got 4 of my 7 Red Velvet albums. God, there's 19 versions of this fucking album. I got my Sulgi Shmini. It's right here. I got my Sulgi Digipack. It's right here. I got my 2 versions of the magazine version of the album. I also have the 2 bags coming. I ordered them off of eBay because they were sold out everywhere. And I have the box version, Solgi's version, coming. Once I get those, then I'll do an unboxing. We'll talk about the album. I'm not opening this right now. I'm not talking about this right now because I don't feel like it matches with what we're talking about here. But I just want to let you guys know, since you're here, that's coming down the pipe. We're just waiting to get all of our pieces together. But going back to the really serious thing, I'll repeat what I said earlier. There are bad things out there. If you want to find them, if you want to delve into the ugliness of humanity, it is there waiting in the news cycle for you. But critiquing people's enjoyment of art when they're not asking you to enjoy that art, and they're not saying that the art in question represents good morality, let these people fucking breathe. Let these people live. If somebody tells you, I like watching people step on cakes with their feet, they're not telling you that you need to watch foot videos. They're not even telling you that watching foot videos is what regular people do. So that's why I'm just like, please be more critical of yourself before you go out there being critical of others. I saw a comment, it was long ago, so I'll read it. Hope you're good. I just got here. There's something to be said about this growing idea that depiction and criticism of awful things is as despicable as the acts themselves. I find it so. I agree. And I made a statement about that earlier, so you missed that. So asinine, and it prevents us from conversations that matter. I agree. One of the things, and this is a side tangent, but it just came to my mind. One of the things that I find very interesting is that there are people who use therapy speak and who tend to be maybe more socially liberal, who have been some of the biggest people to yell about this whole enjoying Made in the Abyss by Idols, right? And I don't think they realize how similar to conservative talking pieces they sound. Because part of the reason why books get banned in school districts is because a lot of conservative groups have said these books depict things that I don't want my children exposed to. Therefore, these books need to be removed. Now, the things these books are depicting is that slavery was bad, that being gay is not awful, being trans is not awful, and that diversity is something that the world should welcome. And that maybe in the past, white people did some really fucked up shit to people of color here in America. And they want that media to be thrown out because it makes their white children feel bad about being white children. And telling an idol, because you consume something that makes me feel away, you should be thrown out. Very, very similar. Very, very similar. And what's also funny about that, too, is that a lot of conservative talking heads will say, I want this material banned from schools, but at the same time will turn around and say that the media is false and we're not being told the truth, and the truth is being hidden from us, and that the sources of media that could be telling us the truth are being suppressed, and free speech is being denied. Hypocritical much? So, yeah, there's a reason why things exist. And one of the things that is a discussion behind the banned books, which loops back to what we were talking about earlier with the depictions of child sex abuse, child torture, child abuse. There have been people who are advocates for promoting the mention of child sex assault in books for younger children. Now, I want to be clear. They're not saying we need to promote child sex assault to children. What they're saying is we should have books available to children that describe what a bad touch is, what's inappropriate, how children should be allowed to govern their own bodies, and no one should be allowed to do things to their bodies that they don't allow. And the reason why they've said that material needs to be made available to young children is because young children oftentimes grow up in environments where they're told what is right and what is wrong by their family, and it isn't until they get to school or around other children that they start to see that other people lead different lives. Well, there are some children who grow up in households where sex abuse is being perpetrated. There are some children who grow up in households where child abuse is being perpetrated. There are some people who grow up in households where assault, sexism, domestic violence, all of these really bad things are being perpetrated, and these children have never known a world without it. They've never known an experience without it. They've never known that that behavior is inappropriate and wrong and should be reported. And then they pick up a book at school, and the book tells them no one's supposed to touch your no-no regions. No one's supposed to touch your body without your permission. No one's supposed to lay a hand on you without your permission. No one's supposed to make you feel pain physically. And then these children realize this has been happening in my house. Oh my gosh, this has been happening in my house. And I can tell somebody and I can make this stop. Sometimes you run across things in art that not only speak to an experience you have, but make you realize that an experience you had is not singular, and that it's not right, and that you should have had a better experience, and that people should have been kinder to you, and that you deserve healing and understanding. And that's part of the reason why negative things should be allowed to exist in media. Because sometimes people need to see it to be able to realize that if it's happening to them, you deserve help. But do you know what they've found? A lot of times, the same people who open their mouths real big to tell you that this stuff shouldn't exist in schools, that young children are too young to be told about their bodies and about what the bad touch is, those same people end up getting booked for child pornography and child sexual assault. Those same youth pastors and church elders and police officers and community activists and men's rights activists get caught with domestic violence, sexual abuse, child abuse, sexual pornography, all the worst things they get caught with. And the reason they didn't want you to know about this existing is so they can continue to perpetrate their schemes. They can continue to be abusive. They continue to run over people. Because if you can't recognize that something is wrong, then that means you can be gaslighted into thinking it's right. So that's really all. I know this is not kind of the fun conversations we normally have. I know usually I try to keep things a little bit lighter and I don't do a whole discussion about something super negative, but I'll tell you kind of like, again, the Twitter thing is the genesis of this conversation, but I think the final nail in the coffin as to why this had to happen too is because the new Sully documentary is on Netflix, and I have not been able to bring myself to watch it. I'll just tell you, I want to watch it. I desperately want to watch it, but AsianJunkie.com, they did an article about the Netflix special where they transcribed several of the moments from the documentary, And it just hurt so bad to hear her talk about her life that I was like, yeah, I need to stay away from that for my own sanity. Like my eyes are getting itchy just thinking about it. But one of the things she said that really spoke to me, and it was early on in the article, was the idea of being pretty, and that all of her life people told her, you just need to be pretty. And not just like you need to be pretty, like your face needs to look a certain way and your hair needs to look a certain way and your body, but also like pretty is be quiet. Pretty is don't make people mad. Pretty is be agreeable. Pretty is make everyone around you feel comfortable to be around you. Pretty is don't express your opinions to others because they might not agree with those opinions. Pretty is you need to be something that makes everyone around you happy. What you desire and who you might be doesn't matter. And she talked about how she spent a lot of her life trying to be pretty. And then once she realized that pretty was a practically unattainable goal, spent a lot of her life examining like what actually is pretty? What things do I find pretty? What could I do that would make me feel like I'm actually pretty? And she talked about how not wearing a bra to her was pretty. And that's why she did it. But that as she got older, she started trying to define her life not by what other people said her life needed to be, but what she found out her life could be. And through reading and through talking to other people and through growing up, she was able to redefine her life. Now, her story doesn't end positively, obviously. We know that. But there may be somebody that is going to hear her story who may be in a similar situation to her, and they may be able to take her words and feel like I'm not alone in feeling like this situation is fucked up. I'm not alone in believing that maybe this isn't going the way that I dreamed it was going to go. And that person may be able to either find a way to create a secret universe for themselves, that way they can keep their sanity, or they may decide this is not worth my sanity and go away from it, or they may decide to speak up for the next person behind them who needs to hear the words. But there's always room in art for the less than pleasant things, for the heart wrenching, for the gutting, for the grotesque. There's always room in art for those things. And so, yeah, that's how I feel. Thank you for spending the last, half an hour or more letting me get through my thoughts. It really, I have to say, I'm very proud of you guys. You're hearing it from me. Understand it to be true. I'm very proud of you guys because I have felt like I've spent a lot of time curating my audience. I feel like the people who watch my videos are people who, number one, enjoy long form content. So thank you for having the patience and the attention span to go through this with me. But two, I feel like the people who listen to me, not to toot my own horn, but I feel like you're intelligent. I feel like you're good people. I feel like you're people who understand nuance. I feel like you're people who are like on the right side of history most of the time. I think I've weeded out all the people who I don't agree with and who shouldn't be watching me. But I'm also proud of you because I've seen the responses you give me. I see the things you type in the chat. I see the things you say to one another. And you guys are just really good people. I especially want to talk to the two Sarahs. Um, Sky Angel Sarah and then Sarah. Um, every time you guys leave comments, I always think, wow, I have incredible people who watch me. I feel the same way about Evie. I feel the same way about Anthony whenever he's on. There's a lot of people, sometimes I don't remember their usernames, Hunty. There's a lot of people who comment here, and I'm like, wow, I have really fucking cool people who watch me. And sometimes I just be in here rambling. But y'all watch me and you prove to me that there's good people in the world. You prove to me that there's smart people who participate in the niche interest that I have. And you just really make me feel like I can be myself here because this is a space where I'm understood. And for that reason, I have to say I'm very proud of you because we have not had big blow ups. I feel like if this was a friendship that we were talking about, we've maintained this friendship here on YouTube for 10 years. 10 years. And I just really am proud that I've known you guys like this and that y'all are so awesome. Like, I don't know what your family thinks about you. I don't know what the other people at your job think about you or at school think about you, but I think you're the bee's knees. I think you're wonderful. And I'm really glad that you're in my audience. So, I don't know. I just, it warms my heart that you guys are here. It warms my heart that we've been able to share what we have shared. And it warms my heart that, if you feel like there's no other space where we can be like this, you found the space. And so I'm very, very proud of you guys. I'll never be able to say it enough. I'm proud of you. I respect you. I am warmed by your presence. I'm thankful that you give me your time. And oh, yeah, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. So there goes the thanks I'm giving to you. Thank you for giving me everything you've given me, your energy, your time, your thoughtfulness. It has not gone unnoticed. And you impress me. You impress me every time. Also, you guys have practically encyclopedia like knowledge of K-pop, and I'll have times on here where like my old woman will come in and I'll like say, "Hey, do you remember ABCD?" And you guys will be like, "No, it's actually FGHIJ." And I'm like, "Wow, you got this from the crumb that I gave you. You got all of that." And so, yeah, I always enjoy being on here with you. I hate talking about bad stuff sometimes, but I always enjoy being on here with you. So thank you so, so much. Also, um, hate to lighten it up, but I have to talk about this now because I might not talk about it again if I don't. I may be posting a little bit of concert footage on the Shawwal chats. Um, I don't know if I will, but last night I saw Mariah Carey in concert. And I kind of feel like I want to share some of the footage with you. I'm not going to lie and say that Mariah Carey is the most stunning entertainer on stage. Mariah Carey is exactly what you've seen on television. She slowly glides across the stage. There's not any dancing. She does a lot of hand holding when she goes up and down platforms. Like, Mariah Carey's show is really about being stunned by her voice. But her voice is still her voice, which that in and of itself is insane. Mariah Carey still can hit every whistle note she's ever hit before. Literally, when the concert opened, they had two little brown Nutcracker dancer girls, and they were on point doing the ballet moves from the Nutcracker. And you hear in the background, ha 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 ha, and it sounds like somebody's doing that, but with a whistle. No, bitch. It was Mariah Carey whistle noting her way through the Nutcracker suite. Go on YouTube and see if somebody will show you a clip of it. It was Mariah Carey whistle noting her way through the Nutcracker suite. And she hit so many whistle notes throughout the concert. She did three actually of my all-time top five Mariah Carey songs. She did a snippet of Always Be My Baby. She did a gospel remix of My All. She did the entire song for Fly Like a Bird. And she did a chunk of Emotions. Those were my three that I just mentioned, but she did a chunk of Emotions. She did We Belong Together. I think she did Make It Happen. She did a whole bunch of Christmas songs. Some I knew, some I didn't know. And then she ended the concert with All I Want for Christmas. And it made the 8-year-old me super joyful to see it because Mariah Carey is somebody that I remember listening to when I was in elementary school. And to see her now, like Mariah, it was like, wow, wow, I'm doing this. Wow. Dream come true. So anyway, thought I'd mention that. I feel like while we're talking about things that we're grateful for, I'm really grateful that I was able to live long enough to see Mariah Carey in concert. She was amazing. Like vocally, she was amazing. And like I said, I might post a couple of clips on the Shawwal 369 The Shaw 360 Chats channel. Man, I haven't used that channel in so long, I forgot the name of it. I might post some clips there. I don't know. I'll think about it. But yeah, she was amazing. I feel really blessed to have seen her. And if you really like Christmas, get a ticket to Mariah Carey's Christmas show because it is literally just a Christmas fest. And everyone shows up to the concert in like Santa hats and Christmas gear and all that stuff. So lots and lots of fun. Lots and lots of fun. And don't worry about not celebrating Thanksgiving because I don't celebrate Thanksgiving either. I'm gonna be spending Thanksgiving at the fucking movie theater. I only celebrate Thanksgiving to get a day off work. That's what I celebrate Thanksgiving for. Do you think I'm out here being excited about the pilgrims? Shit, if they had had their boat wrecked, there's a lot of things about America that would be different. There's a good chance that I wouldn't be here and a whole bunch of other people would still be here. So, no, I'm not worried about celebrating pilgrims. That ain't me. I think that you guys know that ain't me. But I am thankful for getting a day off work, and I am thankful for you guys. I really, really mean that. So, at this point, I've been filming for 50 minutes, which means that if you just joined the live stream, you can scroll all the way back to the beginning and you can get the whole conversation about idols and anime and criticism and stuff like that. Like I said, is a really good conversation, lots of good comments in the live chat. I think that you'll enjoy it if you go back to listen to it. But I'm going to go because, as you can see, it's starting to get darker and everyone in my office left like at 2 o'clock. And I think I need to go home too. I think I'm done. So, again, thank you so much. And once I get the rest of my Red Velvet albums in the mail, then I'll do an unboxing and talk about that album. And I'm still working on my All the Solos from BTS video. I just haven't got it up yet. So we'll do all that later. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. Bye. Happy Thanksgiving. It's happy day off work, girl. Happy day off work.